My name is Eleanor Whitfield. I am 125 years old. I was born in a world that has vanished. In 1899, I came into life in a small village in northern England, long before airplanes filled the skies, long before television spoke into homes, long before anyone imagined a world that moved this fast. When I was born, Queen Victoria still ruled. As a child, horses outnumbered cars. Now I live in a world where voices travel invisibly and children carry everything inside small glowing screens. Yet this does not surprise me the most. What amazes me is that I am still here. Living 125 years is not a miracle. It is a long farewell. I have buried my parents. I have buried my husband. I have buried my children. I have buried grandchildren who once sat in my lap. 3 generations gone. People ask me, what is your secret? They think longevity is about diet, luck, or good health. But they never ask what it feels like to be the last witness to your own history. I was the youngest of 6 children. My father was a blacksmith. My mother sewed clothes for neighbors to earn a few pennies. Life was simple. Cold winters, warm bread, long evenings by candlelight. We had little, but we had each other. I remember running barefoot through muddy fields. I remember the smell of smoke. I remember my mother brushing my hair and whispering, "You must be strong in this world, Eleanor." I thought strength meant carrying water or walking far. I did not know strength would one day mean watching everyone I loved disappear. When I was 15, the First Great War began. Boys from my village marched off, uniforms too large, eyes filled with hope. Some returned, many did not. That was my first lesson that time is not fair. At 22, I married Thomas Whitfield, quiet, steady, with kind eyes and rough hands. He promised simple joys, not riches. Together, we had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. Holding my first son, I imagined a gentle future. I was wrong. The world changed. Economies failed. Another war came. Fear replaced certainty, but we survived. Survived war, survived loss, survived hunger, yet survival has its cost. To survive long enough is to stand alone in empty rooms once full of laughter. My husband passed when I was 63. It was quiet. No drama, no warning. Just gone one ordinary night. I sat on the edge of our bed and felt life shift. Not panic, not grief. Just the deep understanding that life was thinning. I still had children, and so I continued. That is what women of my time did. We continued. Years passed. My children grew, and then came the unthinkable. I buried my first child at 78. Losing a spouse breaks the heart, they say. Losing a child rearranges the soul. I stood by a grave that should never have existed and realized longevity is not about years. It is about carrying unbearable weight silently. By 100, people called me remarkable. They celebrated milestones, but inside I counted absence. At 110, I buried my last sibling. At 118, my youngest grandchild. And I remained. I sometimes sit by the window and ask, why? Why did I stay when everyone else left? And I learned that longevity is not a gift. It is a responsibility. You become the keeper of memories, the storyteller, the living archive. The hardest part was learning to keep living after each goodbye. My first child's funeral changed me. I was 78. Most at that age prepare for rest. I buried my firstborn. He had promised me he would always be there. Illness took him, and for the first time I questioned my strength. I had survived wars and hunger, yet this felt different. It felt wrong. I had 2 other children, aging too. I could not collapse. Grief multiplies. So I cried, but not forever. Resilience is not avoiding breaking. It is refusing to stay broken. I visited his grave weekly, telling him about the changing world, his sister's children, the speed of modern life. Slowly, the sharp grief softened. At 86, I buried my daughter. At 95, 2 of my 3 children were gone. Watching friends and classmates grow old while my children had passed felt like time folding in on itself. Yet, I held on. Grief is heavy, but bitterness is heavier. Longevity demands forgiveness, not because life was fair, but because anger poisons slowly. At 100, I decided to honor my children by continuing. I began writing to great-grandchildren, sharing stories, recipes, love. If I would outlive 3 generations, I would make sure they were remembered. By 125, I feel gratitude for years spent, for moments shared, for laughter and love. But the hardest losses were still ahead. Burying grandchildren is something no parent prepares for. By 112, I had watched children I once held grow old and die before me. At 115, 3 grandchildren gone. I whispered at night, "Why am I still here?" It was not despair, just the weight of being the last witness. Being the last one left isolates you. Identity becomes solitary, memories become fragile. I feared that if I left, the stories would die, so I recorded everything. Voices, stories, names, habits, laughter. History is not dates, it is breath. I became an archive of love. At 120, I stopped asking, "Why am I still here?" I asked, "What can I still give?" I spoke to younger people about resilience, about connection, about forgiveness. By 125, I no longer see myself as the last survivor. I'm a bridge between centuries, between candlelight and screens, between past and present. Longevity teaches you to hold sorrow without drowning, to sit with absence and still feel gratitude, to live not by clinging, but by releasing G